Tonight, we're heading down to Texas to remember 10 R&B pioneers whose sound helped shape modern soul and rhythm and blues. These were artists who didn't just sing songs, they helped define a feeling that would travel far beyond state lines. And the final name on this list might just be the one whose influence you've heard 100 times without even realizing it. Let's begin with number 10. Number 10, Tighten Up by Archie Bell and the Drells.
Yeah, now, I said the name of the dance now.
The record arrived with the kind of confidence that only comes from a group who already knew exactly what they had. By the late 1960s, Houston had quietly become a breeding ground for rhythm and blues that felt both relaxed and deeply rhythmic. Clubs across the city buzzed with local bands that understood groove before anything else. Into that scene stepped Archie Bell and his group, the Drells, bringing with them a record that felt almost conversational.
Come on, let's tighten it up now. Come on and tighten it up.
The rhythm of the song was unmistakable, lean, playful, and built around a dance that listeners could almost learn just by hearing it. Archie Bell's voice wasn't about overpowering the room. It was friendly, inviting, almost like someone leaning across the table to share a joke. One small detail makes the story even more remarkable. The record was already climbing the charts while Bell himself was serving overseas in the U.S. Army.
Let's tighten it up now. All right now, drummer. What you to tighten up for now? Come now.
Back home, the song was filling dance floors. People didn't just listen, they moved. And sometimes a song becomes special, not because it demands attention, but because it quietly brings people together for a few minutes of simple joy. Number 9, She's About a Mover by the Sir Douglas Quintet. Some songs feel like they were carried in on the warm wind of a Saturday night. In the mid-1960s, Texas music didn't sit neatly in one category. R&B blended easily with rock, border rhythms, and the loose swing that drifted up from dance halls across San Antonio and the Gulf Coast. The Sir Douglas Quintet stepped right into that mix with a record that sounded both familiar and strangely new. The rhythm rolled forward with a kind of relaxed confidence. There was no hurry in it. The organ pulsed gently underneath, while the vocal delivery had that half-spoken, half-sung charm that made the whole performance feel effortless. Doug Psalm had a voice that carried the spirit of the region itself, bohemian warmed, a little rough around the edges, and always honest. One small detail listeners loved was the way the Farfisa organ colored the track. That bright, slightly buzzing tone gave the record its unmistakable character. For many people, this was the kind of song that lived on car radios during long drives, or poured out of small jukebox speakers in neighborhood bars. It wasn't trying to impress anyone. It simply arrived, settled in, and made the night feel a little easier. And if that one drifted along like a warm breeze, the next record carried something deeper. Something rooted in gospel and carried by one of the most powerful voices Texas ever produced. Number 8, Share Your Love With Me by Bobby Blue Bland.
If you don't share your love with me.
Some voices don't just sing a song, they confess it. By the early 1960s, Bobby Blue Bland had already become one of the defining voices of Southern soul. Born in Tennessee but shaped in the rich musical soil of Texas, he brought a sound that blended gospel emotion with the late-night intimacy of blues clubs and R&B ballads. His voice carried a kind of controlled ache.
Don't see it, and it's a shame.
It didn't rush toward the high notes. It leaned into them slowly, like someone telling the truth after holding it back for too long. In this recording, the arrangement stays patient. The horns breathe gently in the background, never overpowering the story unfolding in the vocal. What made Bland so unique was the way he used phrasing. That famous half-cry, half-growl in his delivery, sometimes called the Bland squall.
It's bad, and feeling sad when it's not.
Turned even simple lyrics into something deeply personal. Listeners didn't hear a performance. They heard a man working through his feelings in real time. For many who grew up with this record spinning on late-night radio, it became the kind of song you didn't just listen to. You sat with it. And sometimes the quietest songs end up staying with us the longest. Number 7, Tramp by Lowell Fulson.
Number 2, I'm not a child.
Some records didn't ask for approval. They simply walked in with attitude and let the room decide what to do with it. By the mid-1960s, Texas blues had already traveled far beyond the state's dance halls and juke joints. Lowell Fulson had been part of that movement for years, quietly shaping the sound that younger R&B and soul artists were beginning to embrace. Then came Tramp.
That bankroll in my pocket, baby. You know I own 3
The groove carried a sharp, almost playful swagger. Guitar lines snapped with confidence, and the rhythm section moved like it had something to prove. Fulson's voice didn't plead or beg. It spoke with a kind of amused defiance, like someone who'd already heard every criticism and decided to laugh at it. One of the most memorable parts of the record was the back-and-forth style that later versions would expand on. The conversational tension inside the song made it feel alive, almost like you were overhearing a lively argument at the next table. And listeners loved that edge. Because sometimes music doesn't comfort us. Sometimes it reminds us that confidence can be its own kind of freedom. And that spirit, bold, a little mischievous, would show up again and again in the Texas sound. If that one carried a little fire, the next artist carried something heavier. A voice that seemed to come from deep in the night itself. Number 6, Further On Up the Road by Bobby Blue Bland. Some songs arrive like a quiet promise. Recorded in the late 1950s, this record helped establish the emotional blueprint for modern soul long before the genre even had its name fully defined. Texas R&B at the time still carried the raw edge of blues, but voices like Bobby Blue Bland were beginning to bring gospel phrasing into the mix. The result was something deeper than either style alone. His delivery here feels patient, almost restrained. Each line unfolds slowly, letting the story breathe. The guitar work moves steadily underneath, creating that long late-night road feeling the song describes. There's a famous detail about Bland's singing that musicians still talk about today. The way he bends into a note just slightly behind the beat, giving the entire performance a sense of emotional weight. You can hear that here. It's the sound of someone who's learned that time has a way of balancing things out. For listeners back then, this wasn't just a record about heartbreak or revenge. It was a reminder that life has its own quiet sense of justice. And sometimes, the road ahead holds the answers we couldn't see at the beginning. Number 5, Who's Making Love by Johnny Taylor. Some songs arrive with a question that makes people shift a little in their seats. By the late 1960s, soul music had grown bolder. It still carried the deep roots of gospel and blues, but it was also beginning to reflect changing attitudes in American life. Relationships were being talked about more honestly, sometimes a little uncomfortably, and Johnny Taylor understood exactly how to capture that tension.
So many fellas fall in that same.
The groove of this record is confident and steady, driven by a rhythm that almost feels like it's walking forward with purpose. The horns punch in at just the right moments, giving the song its sharp edges. But the real power sits in Taylor's voice. He doesn't shout the message. Instead, he delivers the question calmly, almost conversationally, as if he's looking someone straight in the eye while asking it. One detail that musicians often point out is the way the band leaves small pockets of space between phrases.
Something I never dreamed of. Somebody with a.
Those quiet gaps make the words land harder. For listeners at the time, the song carried a kind of bold honesty, because sometimes the most uncomfortable questions are the ones people recognize immediately. And records like this prove that soul music could speak about real life without softening the truth. If that one held a mirror up to relationships, the next artist brought something more personal. A voice that carried the warmth and vulnerability of a Texas night. Number 4, Tell Mama by Etta James.
Tell your mama what you gotta have. Tell your mama.
Some performances don't just reach the listener, they wrap around them. Although Etta James traveled across many musical landscapes during her career, the emotional fire in her voice connected deeply with the Southern soul tradition that ran strong through Texas and neighboring regions. By the late 1960s, her sound had matured into something unmistakably powerful.
Make her friends think that she didn't care.
Tell Mama opens with a rhythm that feels alive the moment it begins. The horns surge forward, the groove locks in, and suddenly the room feels a little brighter. But when her voice enters, everything else becomes secondary. Etta James sang with a kind of fearless clarity. There was strength in her delivery, but also warmth that made listeners feel like she understood their troubles before they even spoke.
Tell your mama.
One remarkable detail in the recording is how effortlessly she moves between grit and tenderness, sometimes within the same line. For many people who first heard this record in a crowded club or spinning on a jukebox, it carried a feeling of reassurance. The kind that says someone out there understands what you're going through. And every now and then, a voice like that becomes more than a singer. It becomes a companion. Number 3, Green Onions by Booker T and the MG. Every now and then, a song proves that you don't need words to say something that lasts. In the early 1960s, Southern rhythm and blues was evolving quickly. Memphis and Texas musicians were trading ideas, rhythms, and late-night sessions that blurred the lines between blues, soul, and something entirely new. Out of that atmosphere came a simple instrumental that would become one of the most recognizable grooves in American music. Green Onions begins with a slow, deliberate organ line that almost feels like it's walking into the room. Booker T. Jones didn't rush a single note. The melody moves calmly, confidently, letting the groove breathe while the band settles into a rhythm that feels both relaxed and irresistible. One small detail musicians still admire is how the organ tone itself carries the emotion. There's a slight grit to it, warm, thick, and unmistakably Southern. No singer, no long explanation, just a groove that felt alive. For many listeners, this became the kind of record that played quietly in the background while life unfolded. Pool halls, late drives, conversations that stretched past midnight. And sometimes the songs that speak the least end up saying the most. If you're still here listening, you probably know this feeling well. Subscribing helps keep these stories and the music behind them alive. The next artist on our list carried that same sense of depth, but through a voice that could turn even the smallest lyric into something unforgettable. Number 2, The Thrill Is Gone by B.B. King.
The thrill is gone away.
Some songs feel like they arrive after a long night of thinking. By 1969, blues legend B.B. King had already spent decades on the road, shaping a sound that blended raw emotion with careful musical precision. His influence stretched far beyond Texas, but the deep Southern roots of his music connected strongly with the region's R&B traditions.
I'll give it all one day, baby, like I know.
The Thrill Is Gone begins slowly, almost cautiously. The string arrangement drifts in like a cold wind, setting a mood that feels heavy before the first lyric is even sung. When King's voice enters, it carries the weight of someone who has already reached a quiet conclusion. What made B.B. King extraordinary wasn't just his singing. It was the conversation between his voice and his guitar, Lucille. Every phrase of the guitar seemed to answer the vocal line, like two old friends finishing each other's thoughts. Listeners didn't just hear heartbreak, they heard acceptance. Because sometimes the most powerful moment in a relationship isn't the argument, it's the quiet realization that something has changed. And there's no turning back. Number 1, What I Say by Ray Charles. Sometimes a song doesn't just arrive, it changes the direction of everything that follows. In the late 1950s, Ray Charles was already pushing at the edges of rhythm and blues, blending gospel emotion with the groove of the blues and the drive of early rock and roll. Texas audiences, especially in cities like Houston and Dallas, had long embraced this fearless musical mixing. Then came What I Say. The record began almost by accident. During a long tour night, Charles reportedly ran out of prepared songs and started improvising at the piano to fill time. The band followed his lead, the crowd responded, and something electric took shape right there in the room. The rhythm felt alive from the first notes of the electric piano. It pulsed with energy, but never lost that deep southern swing underneath. Ray Charles' voice carried equal parts joy and mischief. And when the famous call and response section arrived, the song stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like a shared experience between the stage and the audience. One simple moment, one spontaneous groove, and suddenly, a new chapter in American music had opened. For many listeners, this wasn't just another record on the radio. It was the sound of music discovering new freedom. And once people heard it, there was no going back. Music like this has a way of staying with us long after the years have passed. The artists we've remembered tonight didn't just create songs. They helped shape the sound of modern rhythm and blues, soul, and even rock and roll. Their voices, their guitars, their rhythms carried pieces of Texas far beyond its borders. But more than anything, these records became part of people's lives. They played in dance halls and living rooms, through car speakers and quiet radios beside the bed. They were there during first loves, long drives, celebrations, and difficult goodbyes. And if you're still here listening, there's a good chance these songs mean something personal to you too. Thank you for spending a little time remembering them with me. If you'd like to keep the music going, there's another story waiting on the screen now. Los Angeles R&B legends you forgot were from California. Another journey through the songs and artists who helped shape the sound of a generation. Whenever you're ready, we'll open that memory next.